So if you look like this, are you protected from getting the virus? And if you don't wear a mask, should you be kicked out of Thailand? Let's talk about it. Hey, JC here for retirecheap.asia. Nat and I have been away for a few months. We're back in Thailand. We're happy to be here. It's great. All the things that I tell you are great about living in Thailand are still here. It's a great value. The people are great. The food is incredible. The products and services can't be beat for a retiree. You get so much more life for less money here. So every time I do a video, it's usually to inform, educate, and entertain you all regarding life in someplace like Thailand. Today I want to do the same, but it won't be so much entertainment. It's mostly informational and educational. And this has to do with this coronavirus. There's a lot of fear going around and a lot of information that I want to help clear up if I can. Now, I'm not a medical professional, even though I come from a medical family. So always seek advice from a medical professional. And this is not intended to be any kind of advice or substitute for information coming from a medical professional. So having said that, let's talk about this virus for a minute, because some people aren't real clear. So I want to tell you, with the help of a website called medcram.com, I want to talk to you about what is this coronavirus, where did it come from, what are the symptoms, the treatments, all that stuff. So I want to do that. Also, I want to talk about the efficacy of wearing masks, because this has come up a lot, and even in my member site. Now, before I go any further, I want to tell you, I'm not telling you to wear a mask. I'm not telling you not to wear a mask. It's up to you. I just think you should be informed as to what the realities are and what masks are good for and what they aren't. So let's go into that in just a second. But first, let's talk about what the coronavirus is, this novel coronavirus of 2019. And then we'll talk about some of these other issues, like should you wear a mask? If you don't wear a mask, should you be kicked out of Thailand? So check this out, and I'll be back in a second.
Cram.com. Welcome to another MedCram lecture. One of the things that's in the news and hopefully goes away real soon is the coronavirus epidemic from 2019. So it seems as though this virus came from Wuhan, China. They've seemed to have pinpointed this to an animal market. In fact, a number of the people that were hospitalized, and we'll talk about that article in The Lancet, came from this animal market. And as of January 25th, 2020, they estimate about 1,300 people have been infected, and about 41 people to date, as of January 25th, have died. And of course, this number is expected to go up. Well, other than China and Asia, this has spread already to Australia, France, and the United States. Specifically, 2 cases, one in Chicago, a woman in Chicago, and a man in Washington State. So we've known about coronaviruses for a long time. It's an RNA virus, so we know that. And let's face it, there's coronaviruses all over the place in humans, and they usually cause the common cold. What's unusual about this one is that this one seems to have jumped from one that is already in an animal to that being in a human. So there's tons of coronaviruses that infect animals. But what has seemed to have happened here for the first time is this one has jumped into a human that a human hasn't seen before. And how could that happen? Well, it could be from a mutation, and that's typically what happens, is there's a mutation in the protein in this virus that allows it to bind to human proteins. And that allows the virus to get inside of the cells of humans, and if it can replicate, then it can spread throughout that human body and then perhaps spread to another human body. So what needs to happen? There has to be a mutation. and that mutation is already there in the animal. And then there has to be close contact with that animal, either living with that animal or eating that animal, to get that mutated virus that normally lives in an animal into the human being. So when that virus then gets into the human being, it's got to be able to replicate so that there's more viruses, and then it has to be able to spread to another human being, and that is what's going to cause an epidemic. So how does that happen? Well, there's got to be replication, as we just said. And they believe that that virus can replicate inside the human. And then how does it spread to another human? As opposed to just another animal spreading it to another human, well, the way that you get an epidemic is with replication occurring inside that person, that index infected person, and then it spreads. How would it spread? Well, it could spread by airborne, so that's why you'd want to wear a mask, or close contact, so a loved one, contaminated surfaces, so that's why you'd have to wash your hands very carefully, or rarely fecal contamination. But these are the things that you can attack to prevent the spread of this virus. Well, you all may remember SARS back in 2002. This was from bats, which is where the virus was, infecting a mammal called civets, and then they being eaten or living close to humans. Fortunately, we haven't seen any more infections since 2004, but that was a big thing back in 2002. Then MERS, which had to do with the Middle East, had to do with camels, viruses that lived in the camel. And if you ate the camel or drank the camel's milk, you could get this type of infection. Now, the new one is humans with this infection called NCOV, which is what they're calling it now. So NCOV is the new coronavirus that's coming out of Wuhan, China, 2019, and that has gone into humans. So what they did was they sequenced this virus. What they did was they sequenced this RNA, and they compared it to 200 other RNA virus coronaviruses that are known to infect animals. And the one they came up with, which was a match that was pretty close, was one in snakes. And so what their conclusion was, and we don't know that this is in fact true, but this was their conclusion, was that in the Wuhan animal market, there must have been a snake that had a mutated coronavirus, which they're now calling NCOV. Somebody either ate it or was close to it or somehow got contact with it, and that virus just started to replicate inside of that person, and that person spread it. About 41 patients that came in to the hospital there and were diagnosed with molecular technique to show that they actually had the virus for the coronavirus. In those patients, about 41, 98% of them had fever, 76% had cough, and 55 had shortness of breath. What was lacking here was the sneezing, runny nose, that type of thing that you would expect to see with a regular virus. Those are kind of lacking here. What did they find? This is a pretty good indication of if you're sick enough to go to the hospital, this is what you might expect. So just so you're aware, 100% of these were confirmed with molecular technique of being the 2019 NCOV, which is the coronavirus. So what was the median age? Median age was 49, so these are not old people. 73% of them were men. And surprisingly, only 32% had underlying comorbidities. Now, what's interesting is that 66% of these people that were hospitalized were exposed to that specific meat market. What's concerning is that it took about 8 days to develop the shortness of breath in those patients who did develop shortness of breath after the illness. So, in other words, there was an incubation period of maybe about a week or two, and then there was the illness that lasted for 8 days, and then there was the shortness of breath. And what did that shortness of breath lead to? In 100% of the cases, there were signs of pneumonia on chest CT. And 29% of these patients developed ARDS, which is a pretty serious and significant lung disease, leading to the last statistic here was that the mortality was 15%. So there's about 6 patients that died as a result of this. And one of them was a young man that had no comorbidities at all. And so that's actually rather concerning. Well, as it turns out, treatment is just supportive, which means if they're dry, you give them fluids, which means if they can't breathe, you put them on a ventilator. But there is no medication that is going to speed up the effect of the virus to get it out of your system more quickly. So in terms of actual specific treatment, there is no treatment. There is no medication. But there is a drug company called Regeneron, which is looking into a treatment and has some promising developments. And there is no vaccine. However, the United States NIH is saying that they're actually developing one shortly. So what is actually being done about it? Well, as of this recording, there's about 35 million people in China that are on lockdown. And it's all around this area called Wuhan. So what should you do? Well, I would avoid going to Wuhan at this point. Number 2, if you have traveled to Wuhan and you get sick, make sure you call a medical professional immediately. This is a developing story, and we'll be giving updates as they come in. But at this point, it seems as though the worst is not over yet, and the amount of people that are infected continue to rise.
So the current knowledge that we have about coronavirus is really based on other coronaviruses. And these are very common in people. People get them all the time. They're also common in animals. But usually the coronaviruses that are in animals, as you saw in that video, stay in animals. Somehow this has mutated and jumped to humans. So, should you be worried about this? Sure, any kind of virus. We've had coronaviruses over the years that killed millions of people, pandemics. And so hopefully they'll get this under control. But in the meantime, I want to talk to you about how to protect yourself and how not to be fearful in situations you don't need to be fearful about. So let's do that. So up until this point, really the only coronaviruses that were primarily in animals that jumped into humans was MERS and SARS. So how do we get these viruses? Are they airborne? In other words, if you wear a mask, are you going to be protected? Most coronaviruses are spread through respiratory droplets. And this is real important because we're talking about 2 issues here. 2 issues that are really important. And they both have to do with the spread of the virus. One is about spreading it to other people if you had it. And that is what's causing the spread of the virus. And so that has to be contained. So that's one issue. The other issue is if you don't have the virus, how to protect yourself from getting it. So these are 2 separate issues. So most viruses that are spread from person to person happens through respiratory droplets. This is not an airborne virus. In other words, it's not floating around in the air. You have to be in close contact with somebody to get it. And close contact means like within 6 feet of somebody. Because again, it's being transferred through respiratory droplets. That means if you're in close proximity to somebody and they have the virus and they cough on you or sneeze on you, then you could get it. And so you need to protect yourself. So, like I said, there's 2 issues. One is spreading the virus. If somebody has the virus and they're symptomatic or asymptomatic and been around people that have the virus, they should wear masks. There's no doubt about it, because that's going to help contain the spread. Because again, if it's coming through respiratory droplets, if they cough or sneeze or anything and they got a mask, it's going to contain it. And we'll talk about the proper use of masks and if they are useful in a minute. But really, they all should wear masks. If you're a healthcare worker, you should wear a mask. If you're in close proximity to other people and you have this virus, you need to wear a mask. This is what's going to keep it from spreading. So this is really important. So that's a given, right? So when it comes to spreading the virus or not spreading the virus, masks are great and need to be used. Now, the flip side of this is if you don't have the virus, should you be wearing a mask? Let's go back again. It's passed through respiratory droplets. And so if you're in close contact with somebody that has this and they cough or sneeze on you and you don't have a mask, it could go in your mouth, your eyes, your nose, anything like that. They're not 100% sure that if that person coughed on something, you touch it and then put that in your eyes, nose, or mouth, whether you would get the virus. But there's a good indication that that could be the case. So if you don't have it, should you be wearing a mask? If you're in any place where there's a lot of people and you're in close contact with them, like a subway, a crowded grocery store, anywhere like that, I suggest that you wear a mask. Will it protect you? Well, if the droplets hit you on the mask, if you wearing the mask, it would protect you. But the mask itself is not going to stop the virus from coming in, but it will stop the respiratory droplets that have the virus. So if you use the mask properly, and what I mean by that, which most people don't do, is if you put the mask on, don't touch it again. Fit it properly and don't touch it. Because if somebody coughs on you or sneezes on you and you adjust the mask or take it off by grabbing the outside, now it's on your hands. This is the way it would spread. If you're going to use a mask, put it on, fit it. If you're around people, when you go to take it off, throw it away, one-time use. Put your fingers on the inside of the mask to take it off or remove it, and then discard it. Then wash your hands. The important thing is washing your hands. This is really important because you could touch something where somebody had coughed or sneezed, and then you touch your eyes, your nose, your mouth, you're going to have a problem. So, should you be wearing the mask? Well, how about an N95 mask? They filter out everything, right? Well, they filter down to like 0.3 microns, and the virus is 0.1. And so the virus could go through an N95 mask. Same thing applies. If you're going to wear the mask, make sure it's fitted properly. Don't be touching the outside of it and adjusting it. And when you take it off, are those one-time use? Well, they should be, because again, if the virus is on the outside and you touch it and then touch something else or you reuse it, there's some risk in that. And so you don't want to do that. Now, so I told you make sure to wash your hands. If you don't have soap and water, which if you have soap and water, wash your hands for about 20 seconds with soap and water. If you don't, use an alcohol-based, at least 60% alcohol, and clean and disinfect your hands if you've been out in a public place, touching surfaces and things like that. If you're in a place where there's a lot of people around and you want to keep it disinfected, you can use some kind of sanitizer on those surfaces to make sure it's clean. Now, there's some indication, and if you reach out to me, I can give you more information about this, that colloidal silver might kill this virus. Now, I'm not saying it does or it doesn't, but if you wanted to clean things, you could spray it down with colloidal silver or any kind of disinfectant. If you think you're coming down with something and you're not 100% sure and you have colloidal silver, you could drink that, because it has been shown to be effective in when they were dealing with SARS. To test out things, they would actually have a pathogen that was very similar, and colloidal silver would actually kill that pathogen within 24 hours. But I'm not promoting it. I'm not saying do it. I'm just saying it's a possibility that that might help. Now, again, this is how you should take precaution if you don't have the virus. That is, don't worry about it too much, but when you go out in public and you're in a crowded place, I'd have a mask. One-time use. Put it on, don't touch the outside. If you have to adjust it or anything, make sure your hands are clean and disinfected. Put your fingers on the inside and move the mask around. If your hands are contaminated, don't put them on the inside. If you put them on the outside, the mask could be contaminated, and so you're going to contaminate your hands. Make sure you don't put your hands near your eyes, your nose, your mouth. Okay? So those are how you can take precaution. Now, it came into the news that the health minister of Thailand said that the foreigners that aren't wearing masks should be kicked out of the country. I want to address that for just a minute.
ไอ้ฝรั่งอีกนะครับไอ้พวกฝรั่งนักท่องเที่ยวอันนี้ต้องบอกไปยังสถานทูตนะครับแล้วก็บอกพวกประชาชนทั่วไปด้วยไม่ยอมใส่แจกแล้วไม่ยอมรับอย่างนี้ต้องไล่ออกจากประเทศไทยไม่ใช่ไปสนใจคนที่ แบบภาพรวมที่คนที่อยู่ในประเทศไทยนี่เองนักท่องเที่ยวเนี่ยเราเอาไปให้แล้วเนี่ยยังปฏิเสธอยู่นะครับไม่มีท่าทางที่จะยี่หระต่อสถานการณ์นะครับคนจีนคนเอเชียเขารับกันทุกคนไอ้พวกยุโรปเนี่ยมันน่านักนะครับแล้วก็รู้ได้ไงว่าเขาจะไม่เป็นตัวแพร่เชื้ออาจจะไปเที่ยวเมืองอื่นมาก่อนมาเมืองไทยเนี่ยเป็นสิ่งที่ต้องคนไทยต้องช่วยกันถ้าเจอคนอย่างนี้ไล่มันออกนอกประเทศไปเลยนะครับ
I think this is really important and an important distinction. This man has the weight of the country on his shoulders. He has a lot of responsibility to contain this and keep people healthy. He was giving out masks in the BTS Siloam station, which is a very crowded area. They were giving out masks to people. I think it was a great idea. Now, keep in mind, like I say, he has a lot of responsibility. And in Asian culture, there's a thing about losing face. So when he went to give foreigners the mask, some people thought they didn't need it and refused the mask. What happened when they refused the mask? He lost face. Here's reporters and everybody around. He's trying to do something good, and the people are refusing it. He lost face, something you don't want to have happen in Thai culture. So, of course, he responded to that saying that they don't care, they don't see the big picture, and they should be kicked out of Thailand. I don't think he actually meant that. In the moment, he had lost face. What the foreigners should have done, and they don't realize this, is they should have accepted the mask and why, and thank you to the health minister. He's trying to help them. He's trying to help the country. And so I understand the dynamics of what took place. I don't think he actually wants all foreigners that don't wear masks to be kicked out of the country. I don't think that was it. I think it was a reactionary statement to the press because he was upset. Because this is a thing about Asian culture, about losing face. And this is why I always try and educate my members that are in member sites and also in YouTube so that you fit into this society. And this is part of fitting in. So, again, it's up to you whether you want to wear a mask or not. I just wanted to inform you about the virus so you know what it is, talk to you about what masks can do and can't do. By the way, if you're saying, well, who are you to say don't wear a mask or it's not effective or anything? Both the CDC and the World Health Organization says that masks really aren't that effective, except if you already have the virus to keep it from spreading. That's the important distinction for masks.
Medical masks like this one cannot protect against the new coronavirus when used alone. When you wear them, you must combine with hand hygiene and other preventive measures. WHO only recommends the use of masks in specific cases. If you have cough, fever, and difficulty breathing, you should wear a mask and seek medical care. If you do not have these symptoms, you do not have to wear masks because there is no evidence that they protect people who are not sick. However, if you are healthy, but you are taking care of a person who may be infected with the new coronavirus, then you should wear a mask whenever you are in the same room with that person. And remember, if you choose to wear a mask, use it and discard it properly and clean your hands with alcohol hand rub or soap and water. For more information on mask use, other preventive measures, and the new coronavirus, check WHO website at who.int. Thank you.
So if you're around people in a crowded area, wear a mask. If you think you have the symptoms of the virus, make sure to wear a mask and seek immediate medical attention. So there you go. I hope this is helpful. But if you have any questions or comments, reach out to me and I'll try and answer them. But remember, when it comes to staying safe and not being affected by this coronavirus, there's always an option. And we're praying that they keep this contained and it doesn't become a bigger problem than it already is. And we're praying for those that have the virus and hope that they get well. For JC, see ya. Hey, JC here. If you like that video, make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel here. Also, we have another video up here you're going to be really interested in watching as well. And if you're looking for all the details of how to retire in Thailand in one place, plus a group of people to support you, check this out over here. Give it a click.